Good afternoon from the garden and welcome to another harvest video. We actually filmed the harvest video about 3 weeks ago, but then we concentrated mainly on the food forest part of our garden and our perennial crops. And in today's video I want to show you what we're harvesting in the kitchen garden, so mainly the annual vegetables that we have here. It's the 25th of September today and we had the first frost last night in our general area, but fortunately it did not hit our garden, and that means that we still have some summer vegetables to harvest, though these are definitely nearing the end of their life cycle. But actually I wanted to start with a little work-life update and apologize for not filming in 3 weeks, and the reason for that was that we've been very busy with work. As you might know, I'm a garden writer and I'm working on my book which will be published in English in February 2019. And the 30th of September, the end of this month, is my deadline for the last edits and also submitting all the photos. And I find that quite challenging because we have so many beautiful images, so it's difficult for me to choose. And there's another thing. From the beginning of 2019 I'll be the chief editor of the beautiful Dutch magazine The Tuin of Tafel, which means the garden on table, and it's a magazine that is all about edible gardening, so it's really something that I'm very passionate about and I'm very much looking forward to. But it also means that I'll be writing a lot of the content, and for that we're now visiting lots of gardens and nurseries to get pictures for next year, because of course you have to work a year in advance with a magazine. So we've been traveling almost every weekend these past few months, and that means that we're really neglecting the garden. I feel like we only come here to harvest, so if you look around and you see how abundant it still is, then you can really see how well permaculture techniques work. But now let's get on with the harvesting. And the first thing I wanted to do is lift the last potatoes that we have in this bed. And I'll see if I can pull some up. Oh, look at this. It's a variety called Sevilla. And it is a main crop potato. And it has quite a good blight tolerance. And something that was really important for us this year, it also has a good drought tolerance. Oh, look how big these potatoes are. It's a recently developed variety, and it's especially well suited to making fries. We have not made fries with it yet. We make oven fries, which are really good. And from the few plants that we have already harvested, the largest potato weighed 600 grams, which is 1.5 pounds, I believe. So it was big enough for the 3 of us to make dinner from. So these are really huge, and they taste really good. So it's the first year that I've been growing this potato, and I think I will definitely grow it again next year. I'm going to lift the potatoes and leave them on the ground to dry a bit before we store them. So this is the harvest from 3 plants, and plants that have not been watered since, when was the last time we watered? Before our vacation, the end of July. And it has been pretty dry at the end of the summer as well. So I'm really pleased with the results, and as I said, I will definitely be growing this one again. Another crop that is still producing but nearing the end are our bush beans. And I sowed these as a second crop here at the beginning of July. We have picked lots. I always make a bit later sowing so that we can harvest them when we come back from our vacation, so that we don't have beans ripening in the middle of our vacation when we're not here to pick them, because you have to keep picking them and picking them at the right size, otherwise they're not that good to eat. And this too is a variety that I have not grown before. The reason I chose it was because it was supposed to be stringless. I must say I'm happy with the productivity of the plants. The beans are a good size, but they are definitely not stringless. So I actually don't think that I'll be growing this one again. We'll probably try another variety next year. And if you have any tips for me, then they're definitely welcome. We have another legume growing in this bed, one that is much less known here in the Netherlands at least, and that's soybeans. I have grown these last year too, but they have not done so well, so I saved most of the crop for seeds, and I grew these from the seeds that I saved last year. It is a variety that is adapted to northern climates because soybeans normally require quite a lot of heat. And of course, this summer has been perfect in that sense. So, oh wow, look at that. I don't know whether you can see that. There are so many beans on this one. And the plants are so much larger than last year. And the pots are quite small. There are only about 2 to 3 beans in each pot. And you have to cook them to peel them easily. Yeah, they're very difficult to open. So the way to do it is to blanch them, then peel them, and then cook with them. Use them in some dishes. And actually, soybeans, you can't buy fresh soybeans here in the Netherlands, so that's quite an exciting crop. Nope. I'll only harvest a handful now and cook with it and see what we think. Next to the bean bed we have trellis with cucumbers, and these are oriental cucumbers, which are quite spiky, but they are very good. And can you see that? It's actually really weird, but they're not unpleasant to eat, and they're very productive, very disease resistant. But as you can see now, that it's getting colder, they're nearing the end of their productive life. And it's another crop that we grew up these trellis that we made at the beginning of the season. I'm really happy that we did. They're so useful. We have used them for sugar snap peas, for sweet peas, for cucumbers. We have another crop over there, the mini pumpkins. Next year I want to use them for beans as well. So lots of possibilities, and I'm really happy with how sturdy and useful they are. Here we have our outdoor tomatoes, and today I watched a harvest video that we filmed last year in September, and then there I could see that the outdoor tomatoes that we were growing last year were blighted in September. And as you can see, these plants are really healthy, which could be because the season has been much more tomato friendly, or because it's a different, better variety. I have mentioned this before in a video, but if you have not seen it, I grew these from seeds that I got from my friend Peter Bouwens from the nursery De Nieuwe Tuin, and this is their own selection that they're trialing now, that they grew selected for disease resistance for growing outside in the Netherlands and Belgium. And the plants are really productive and healthy, but I grew all of these from the same seed packet, and there's quite a lot of variation, so I think that has not been stabilized that well yet. Oh, there's some disease here, but not blight though. And since it could freeze anytime soon, I'm going to pick the tomatoes that are almost ripe and then let them ripen inside. And there's another crop here that is interesting. Can you see the mushrooms? These are wine cap mushrooms. They're more over here. And they appeared spontaneously on our paths that are mulched with wood chips. They grow really well on wood chips. So our paths are doubling as growing space now. It's not always practical because sometimes we step on the young mushrooms, but if they're close to the edges of the beds, then they're not damaged and we can enjoy them. And since it's fall, I'm really looking forward to some mushroom dishes. It's really what I feel like. I feel like mushroom risotto, I think. I'm growing 2 varieties of mini pumpkins this year. Gold Speck that I grew last year, and Baby Boo. This is the ivory colored one. And they're so cute. They're so great as decoration. And I also have a recipe in my book for filling them with wild rice. So stay tuned for that. And I'm going to pick at least those that are mostly ripe, because in case we get a frost and they could be damaged by that. So I have already picked a few, but there are more that can be picked. Whoop. Difficult to get to. There are also lots of hardy crops that I'm not harvesting yet, because those will be around even after we get the first frost, unlike the summer vegetables. So we're enjoying the summer vegetables while they last, and then we'll be enjoying the hardy vegetables like endive and radicchio and chard and leeks and the brassicas like kale. And because I know that we'll be eating lots of those throughout the winter, then I'm not very keen on starting to pick them yet. Now let's head over to the greenhouse and see what we've got there. The tomatoes in the greenhouse are still growing strong, so I will be keeping those, and I hope that they will not be hit by frost yet. But the gherkins over here are mostly finished, so I'm going to pick the last fruits and pickle them or ferment them, which is what I did last time. I really like fermenting stuff, and these are quite large, so I prefer them this size, mini gherkins. I have harvested all the gherkins and I'll be pulling the plants up, and I think I will also be pulling up the melon plants, because there are still some tiny melons. I don't think they will ripen though, and I will need this space to plant my winter salads. There are also some poblano chilies to pick and some red chilies, and I want to harvest some basil, and that's it, I think, in the greenhouse. And since it's getting colder and we might get a frost, I want to head over to our pumpkin patch at the back of the garden and harvest some more winter squashes to protect them in case we do get a frost. Recently we filmed a video about this area and about how we clear soil of perennial weeds, how we kill perennial weeds with covering the soil with cardboard and growing winter squashes at the same time. So this is the patch, and it's time to bring the squashes inside. We have already harvested some, but there are still lots, especially of the large ones here, that I'll be taking home now. I think we have about 7 varieties this year, and I will be again filming a review. We always there will be the 3rd year in a row that we will film a review of the varieties that we've grown and talk about their productivity and how they've done for us. So stay tuned for that. Oh, this is a huge one. This is the largest fruits of any of the varieties that we have grown this year, because usually I prefer smaller fruited varieties, but well, this one is called Lakota, and it is so beautiful that I hope it's as good as it's as good to eat as it looks. So here are some of the smaller fruited varieties that I consider to be much more practical in the kitchen. Here's delicata squash. We have some butternut, a few different varieties because I did a small trial this year. This is Anvers and Autumn Crown, and this super beautiful one, it's called Festival, and it's also super productive. But I will talk about all the details in our winter squash review. I've also picked a small bunch of dahlias, which are the flowers of fall. I only have 2 varieties over here, and I haven't actually picked a lot from them. I should keep picking them because then they keep flowering. Did you know that dahlias are edible too? Quite nice. And we also planted some for the edible tubers, and we'll be tasting those in the fall, later in the fall. Over here I have 3 or 4 summer squashes, and these 2 we have been picking from for a long time, and I'm quite impressed with how good they still look, because they have not been watered for months. They are grown through a wood chip mulch, and that seems to have really helped a lot. This is the variety Romanesco that I talked about in the previous video. I really like this one. It's definitely also a variety that I will keep growing. And this is the size that I like my squashes. Sometimes they get away from you and turn too big. Oh, like this one. This is a different variety. This is Lebanese white, which is fine. It has quite a nice thin skin, but I don't like it as much as I like Romanesco. And this one is already a little too large for my liking. The last thing I want to pick today is this apple. It's a red-fleshed apple, Red Love Calypso from the Nursery Lubera that I have already talked about very enthusiastically. At our first harvest, the tree was planted in spring last year, and we got 2 apples this year. One fell off, and this one I picked now. We have not tasted it yet. I hope it's good, and I hope we'll get more next year. My harvest basket is pretty heavy by now, so I think we have enough to eat for the next few days. I hope you enjoyed this harvest video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you again next time. Happy gardening!